Gina Jumesi here. Welcome to my channel or welcome back. If you're checking me out on YouTube or on Spotify, thank you so much for your support. Today, we have an amazing, wonderful guest. Been waiting to have his availability for months. He's a very, very busy man. And for him to apportion me this time today is such a wonderful opportunity. And I'm so, so grateful. Today, my own financial architect. And I love saying it like that because truly is a financial architect, financial surgeon, wherever you want to go. He's got me straightened up. Okay. And I haven't looked back ever since.
Oh, man, thank you.
Absolutely. Patrick, today, if you want to do the honors to introduce your own self, because I'll not do right now.
First and foremost, Gina, I want to say it is an honor and a pleasure and a privilege for Archie, myself, our firm to be able to serve you. That's first and foremost. And anytime you would ever ask me to do anything, I jump at the opportunity because it's just a pleasure to work with you. Now, all the things you represent and the impact you have. And the fact that you're taking this time to be able to share with the community, to be able to break various forms of trauma and past habits that have plagued us for way too long, just speaks to the impact that you're always looking to have, which is why it's an honor to work with you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And so just a little bit about myself. I guess I'll start end in mind and then reverse engineer the start of the story, go from there. Absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is Patrick Scott. I am a certified financial planner, hold a master's of financial planning with a concentration in legacy and distribution planning. Credit estate planner, tax planning certified, wealth management certified, and the list goes on. And praise be to God for the opportunities and education he has afforded me to bring in academic, evidence-based planning strategies and needs to a field where it's oftentimes rule of thumb and sell and tell. That being said, what has gotten me here is amazing, the journey, which, Gina wants me to share with you. And that is definitely didn't grow up this way. Didn't know anything about this level of work. I will say I'm so blessed and humbled to come from a great two-parent household. My parents that have been married for 48 years. One's an educator, the other a dentist. And that being said, they could not prepare me because they didn't know what they did not know. Right. And the fact that they couldn't prepare me, their peers, that just speaks to unspoken truths we have yet to unveil. Mm-hmm. And given that, all I ever knew growing up was I wanted to play football and become a doctor. Wow. And, I graduated high school, 4.6 GPA from Lincoln High School in Tallahassee, Florida. I then went off to scholarship at Stanford University, played there for a year, decided that really wasn't a culture, not necessarily from the team itself, just what I wanted just from even like the historical Black college experience. Transferred Florida A&M University. Out of that, glad I went to Stanford that first year. Truly, a lot of our members and clients we serve today come from that Stanford IB background and Florida A&M graduates of historical Black colleges. And so after coming back to Florida A&M University, I graduated with a degree in molecular cell biology. Oh, wow. In 2012. Started my master's in the same, the only job I knew before the NFL was cancer research. And from there, I signed a contract with the Arizona Cardinals in April of 2013. Wow. Spent a great amount of time there. And what I would say is in my time of playing pro football, which was 5 years, only about 6 months in the NFL, those 6 months, they'll really change my life. Wow. Because they say exposure is everything. Like, how can you know something that you haven't been exposed to yet? And when I got to the NFL, how can I put this in words? You see owners who are billionaires walking around. They're not treating or looking at football as a sport. It's an investment. Wow. It's their business. It's their brand. I'm seeing general managers and the things they're investing in and how they're investing in people. And my mind just started shifting around investing in the economy and what drives growth just from that exposure. Yeah. And then you see guys who are signing, $20, $30, $50 million contracts. I never forget hearing an argument on the football field between two of the highest paid players around who's better dressed. And the one guy was saying he was very traditional. The other guy who was a little flashy let the other guy know that, hey, while I live a flashy life, I also have 50 million invested that I don't touch. And I was like, wow.
Wow.
And so when you get that level of exposure, you just start realizing you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And fast forward, when I got released from the Arizona Cardinals, at that time, looking to continue chasing the dream of professional football. Mm-hmm. However, to chase that dream, you don't really have the capacity or the resources to go to med school at the same time. It's pretty impossible.
Right.
And so as a result, I chose in my youth to continue to chase this dream that, unbeknownst to me in my own mental health at that time, that it had become my identity of being an athlete, because that's what everyone called me growing up. So chase the dream. I had to find something to keep the lights on. And what I decided at that time was, man, I really want to get into banking. Right. And so back in 2013, roughly November, I got my first start with a bank known as SunTrust, then now Truist, as assistant manager. And how I got in that role, no idea. I had no background.
Interesting. Wow.
That's it. I do know what happened. And then I sold myself, rightfully so, as true management material, given the fact that I was the captain of a football team pretty much all my life. And I remember telling the hiring manager that if I could oversee a team of 90, 18 to 21-year-old males that are testosterone driven, to get them to march on one accord, I could run a bank.
Yeah.
And so I kind of stayed in that space in the off seasons from there, kind of coming up, seeing more different exposure while still chasing the dream. And I think one of the pivotal moments, really unbeknownst to myself, was a relationship I established with an amazing gentleman that became a great friend. And his name was Sheldon Bruneau. He was a trust and estates planner within our branch. And, great mentor, want to say someone I love, rest his soul. He left us some years ago. Sheldon, when we would kind of meet at this place called the Aloft Hotel downtown, or he come work out with me at UFIT, we talked about what he did. And I just saw that, he was a great family man, always with his daughter, always with his son on his basketball. His daughter worked at like Chick-fil-A. He was always there. And he still living a great professional life. I was like, man, I want to do what he does, not really doing all of what he did. And I said in the back of my mind, I would love to be an estate planner and financial planner.
Yeah.
I just didn't believe I could do it because I didn't know what it took to become one.
Right.
And so fast forward, I played one more year of professional football in the Canadian Football League. Gina, I was cut and I was released. And at that point in time, I was truly at a crossroad, which stands as the name of our practice today, Crossroad Capital Partners.
Hey.
Because truthfully, everyone's always at some crossroad in their personal life, their business life, their legacy, financially, family, community dynamics. And it's like, how do we move forward from here? And at that crossroad, I wanted to actually join the bank I had been with prior, with the amazing people and relationships I had built there. And that's it. I could not get the job back there going back, because the job I was going for, I did not have an accounting class in my background, so they wouldn't accept me. I got an opportunity to go play football again in the Canadian Football League. And I was thinking about going to med school after playing football for one more year.
Right.
And I just, at this crossroad, I had a conversation happen with my brother where he asked me why had I never considered becoming a wealth management advisor.
Right.
That he just thought I would be dynamic in the space, that I was one of the smartest people he knows, most charismatic, and felt I could really bridge the gap for wealth for a lot of different individuals. He did not know I had been thinking about this career a year before, but denied it to myself. So that's the power of belief, giving it to him and allowing it to be carried out. And sure enough, the moment I told my brother in response, Gina, once he asked me why had I never considered the career, I told him back, if God opens a door, I will run through it and never look back. And the moment I said it, my affiliate broker reached out to me with the opportunity to start my own firm. They had saw my background in finance and banking since 2013, my professional success away from that, and thought I could be groomed into running a top firm. And 7 years later, here we are today.
Wow.
And so that is just the start of where we are. And in 7 years, it's been a lot of growth. We've been on the Forbes list twice for our firm and the service we offer. We serve pretty much everybody. That said, I would say about 75% of who we serve are women-led households in terms of earnings, many generational families, executives, and business owners. And so it's just been a fun ride, as you can attest to, the ability to create win-wins, right? Because if we never had a win-win, you would never invite me on the show. That's it. It's been building together. And I think that's what gives me so much joy, is that I am just so invested in the success of the people we serve that I really look at our firm, Gina, as like the same way venture capital invests in small businesses. I look at our firm as a venture think tank to be able to partner with families and business owners to be able to distill through their troubles and their concerns to come up with the ideas and strategies necessary to achieve their dreams. And that gives me so much life. So that's just a snapshot of the introduction and the work we're doing and the impact being had. Yes, ma'am.
My God, I love that so much. It's like 7 years, and it comes to mind. 7 is for perfection, and you had the rode the waves of the instinct of saying yes to it, the power of readiness too. Like I'm trying to summarize everything that you just said into one, which boils down to the power of being ready.
Amen.
And your intuition and where you truly want to navigate your life towards. And as you profess it, and as you rally other people's perspective, but also respecting your own calling and aligning yourself to it, the people who you need as helpers will come along the way. That's kind of what
they will come. Oh man, you said it so perfectly. I've always learned that, in just my own personal belief and faith, that God doesn't call the equipped; He equips those He calls. And just by saying yes, you're right. With every step, every journey, every page, the people who have been there, the people we serve have been there. Wonderful individuals like you have made great introductions, who've advocated for our firm. I'm so grateful and thankful. And you're right, it's just been keep stepping. As you keep stepping, the towels will keep appearing and allow you to move forward.
Yeah. And truly, your company, you and Archie, truly, like, it's so wonderful, because I think the first time we spoke, I was telling you how I wanted, I first said, I tried a couple times I don't want to name any big companies here.
Yep. I know exactly where you're going with this.
You know where you're going with it. When you walk into many of these companies, you're really looking to invest. You're looking to have some type of a legacy for your children, for your next something. Life is unpredictable. You don't know when. You want to have your stuff in order to some degree, or to a really good degree. And you walk in there, and usually it's maybe older, out of touch, maybe, especially being women, being African American too. Not to say, men, I'm sure, also experience the same thing, but that alignment is not there, especially when it comes to culturally being aligned with the mentality of those companies. It just throws you off. There's no follow through, truly. You're left at your own devices trying to figure it out. But what I truly love about your company is how versatile it is, and I love it so much. I see on the app, and really I'm taking my time and building this. You have the trust. I have my will, even funeral planning, like, God forbid we want to leave all the way till 100 and over, right? But you want to have those things aligned. And I love it so much that it has all these bells and whistles all under one umbrella. Just like in my case, Psych on Demand, not just are we providing medications, but we're also providing vitamins. We are providing therapy. We are providing coaching. We are providing opportunities for students to learn the ways to become, having that support under one umbrella, making it accessible, having apps, being able to reach you or your assistants or your office via email in different ways, that is what I'm talking about. And this is why I've been hooked since then. And I appreciate it so much.
Appreciate you.
Yes, absolutely. Can you talk a little bit on, I put a little highlight on that, like all the, especially when it comes to business too. One of these, another thing that really sold me on is the opportunity to even use some of the investments as a small business, to use it as a tool to reinvest into the business, to even grow more, because it becomes a line of credit, if I'm using the right verb.
Line of credit. That's the right term.
Because some of us, as immigrants, we come to this country, we are hustling. We want a better life for ourselves, for our families back home, and for our next generation, our children, right? And we get caught into the hustle and bustle of working and working and working. By the time you're 60, your body is breaking down this country, with the different temperatures and stuff. But when you have the opportunity to invest, and you can fall on something, your children can fall on something like that, you're investing little bits over time. Can you break down to the community how your setup is like, and how that is different from the other companies, please?
Yes, ma'am. And I know exactly the moment you said it. I remember our very first conversation, and you told me how you felt as you walked into other wealth institutions. And so here's what I'll say. I'll never talk around another firm. I can speak for hours. And here's the heart of it. Empathy. It's empathy. Yeah. And I'm so glad I never grew up wanting to be in this space, that I was more so called to it. Because I think when someone just wants to be in here, they almost fall victim to the old ways of doing this work. And that's just, hey, here's a product, here's a portfolio, here you go. Yeah. And I'm quite honest, that's what makes people so turned off to even working with financial firms, and rightfully so. And I think one reason we don't get any pushback is because I understand, my team understands, we understand why someone would not want to work with the firm, given the industry norm experience. And so here's where I'll say the empathy stems from when I was in the NFL. Even though I only made $8,000 to $10,000, since everyone, perceived I had made millions because I was in the NFL, I was getting called on all the time. And when people were calling me, Gina, they never really asked me what I was going through. They never really asked me how I was feeling. They never really asked me, what I was focused on, because at that time, at 23, all I could feel was my dream slipping away. A promise I made to my brother of getting to the NFL going away. And all they wanted to talk to me about were stocks and bonds and returns. And I'm no dummy, right? I went to Stanford FAMU, graduated molecular cell bio. So clearly what that taught me was there was a disconnect. Right. And so when I got started with the firm, I reflected back on that experience of feeling like I was a foreigner to wealth, that I did not speak the language. Imagine traveling to a land, as those who are immigrants that have traveled with different countries, and someone speaking a language you don't know. It's overwhelming. It makes you feel insecure when you're trying to figure out what's being said. And that's how I felt. And I realized that's how other people felt. Of course. And I would say to that, Gina, is really, I would say that golden rule to the platinum rule. Mm-hmm. Golden rule says treat others how you'd like to be treated. And to take that further, it should sound like treat others how they would want to be treated. Because you want someone to treat you how you want to be treated. So from that is where the heart of our firm was built. And I would say the second step in that was built from what I saw in my parents. They were one of the very first members of our firm, naturally in support of their son. And so my parents are 71, 72 now. They were 63, 64 when I started working with them. And they say all the time they wish they had a me. They wish they had someone, because now in their 60s, that became the core of who we serve, were people in their mid 60s, early 70s, early 80s. And the common issue that we were seeing was everybody had the different stuff. It's just that the stuff wasn't working well together. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that is where that under one roof kind of philosophy was born from, was, hey, instead of complaining about us not having the access, why not just create the access? Become the conduit for people to now bridge from where they are today to their best life. That was the birth of Crossroad. And so as a result, it had to becoming more of a generalist versus this tactical specialty in one product. And what that generalist side looked like was building out an education, to really understand tax, legal, financial planning concepts as it pertains to like investment and estate needs.
Mm-hmm.
And that led to really kind of honing in on the Certified Financial Planning Board's disciplines of cash flow, insurance, investments, tax, retirement, estate, and business needs.
Mm.
And when you look at it from that view, Gina, what it allows us to do is to take a 30,000-foot view.
Right.
That if you think about life, right, you, right, being a mother, right, with the children and having to care for them, you got a lot going on. Your mother, your business owner, your friend, you have so many hats. And so to now navigate your world, as many people listening today,
right,
it's like, where do you even have the time to make sure the pieces are coordinated? You're in the weeds of it. So what we wanted our firm to become was this trusted partner that someone could slow down for a moment, like the hours that we share on eat, to now look at everything from a 30,000-foot view, bringing those pieces in place and coordinate them. Because now we can do that. We can spot where their gaps are, where the needs are, and that leads to the good planning. And the other way I would just say that is really operating how you do as a practitioner, or my dad as a practitioner in dentistry. And that is, you always diagnose before you prescribe. And that's, if I can sum up our work, Gina, we diagnose before we prescribe.
Of course.
Think back to our initial meetings, we're asking questions. What's important to you? What are you looking to create? We took time understanding your philosophy and how you thought through things. And from there, we were able to now build a plan with those various domains in mind. The same way a doctor would ask somebody, talk to me, what happened? What brings you here today? That is how it should sound. And if it doesn't sound like you're talking to a real good practitioner in the healthcare field, etc., you're likely working with the wrong firm, because they're just leading with prescription. They're not leading with diagnosis, and it should be diagnosis before prescription. So that's what led to the work and the things we've done. And the last part, kind of what you hit on for business owners, that's just understanding a business owner's needs. And business owners, like many others, need access to capital. So if we were to invest in a way that tied up your money until 60, it would hurt you, because you need access to capital to continuously grow your business. So we just had to think through ways, Gina, together, of how could we invest? How could we grow assets, and then do it in such a way that you still had access to it to build now? I think too often in old firms, since they don't spend time getting to know their members and their clients, they end up just planning for the long term. And they don't think about the fact that somebody has life today. And then because of that, they actually do not get the long term right. So it should be, hey, let's start with the end in mind. Let's see what Gina's goals are, our members' goals are, reverse engineer that, and now build one sound, congruent plan that would allow someone to step and pivot as necessary. And that's the heart of the focus. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that's absolutely wonderful. Now, I know there's a lot of people still who maybe for lack of, you mentioned something at the beginning of your career. One is like getting connected to the right people, being in the right rooms, and being versed in knowledge, or being willing to learn more and be knowledgeable about finances, about investment, about going beyond the clock in and clock out, the 9 to 5. What's beyond that? Which makes me like, if somebody's still skeptical about investing their dollar, and truthfully, it doesn't have, like, we spend so much money, eating out, door dashing, constantly buying. And somebody might feel like, oh, this is so out of touch for me, maybe this is not for me. Life insurance, some people even in my community think when you put your money into life insurance, it's like almost feels like you're predicting death into your life. Like, it's just that fear for real. A lot of people get so scared of the fact that, it's only for, like, okay, you pass away, your family's going to get whatever money, but it goes beyond that. If somebody still goes in their mind, they're going, I don't want to do this. It might be the end of it all for me. They're scared, truly. There's a lot of people who are so scared or naive to the power of getting into life insurance, what would be your advice to someone like that, especially in our immigrant community, in our church, highly religious communities where we all default to, oh, God will do it. Oh, God, we have children. God takes care of our children, whatever.
I would love to speak to that.
Yeah, people pass away, and the grief is not just about losing that person you love. Sometimes the grief comes from, now this person has passed away. I don't even have enough money to plan a funeral. I had a friend there at the time who unfortunately passed away. Even money to get his body from the hospital to the morgue was a big issue. The state had to take over. And you're grieving the loss of that person, and then you're also grieving the lack of funds to carry on their wishes after they've, passed on to be with the Lord. What would you say to somebody like that who is still very skeptical about?
I would say to this so much, Gina. I pulled this up just to make sure I didn't misquote it. I would first share Proverbs 29:18, where there is no vision, the people perish.
Of course.
I would say that first. The second thing I would then say is Numbers 14, 26 to 28, where God left the children in the wilderness, and his response was, "Verily, verily, I say unto you, as long as I live, says the Lord, I will do unto you what I hear you say."
Right.
That being said, we too often in our relationship as spiritual individuals, which are many of your followers that we're speaking to right now,
right,
don't understand the power we've been blessed with.
Yeah.
And that being said, I will say death and life are in the power of the tongue. Whichever these you love, you will receive. Proverbs 18:21. So we got to really understand, it doesn't matter if you're using life insurance or not. If you're focused on death, you focus on death. That's what you're going to get. And then lastly, what it boils down to is, if you fail to plan, then hey, that's why you perish, because you have no vision. And so I would say to them that they're really not practicing what they're preaching.
Yeah.
Because the Bible speaks to a man who leaves an inheritance. The Bible speaks to the parable of the talents, and not burying those talents, but putting them to use and multiplying them. So the talents in that, and by the way, for those who don't even realize that, people think talent refers to like someone's talent. In the scripture, that talent was a form of currency. Right. So the master was actually displeased because the currency was not multiplied. Right. And so we've literally been called to multiply. And when we don't multiply, we're literally saying we're not children of a Most High. Because if you were, we would not be struggling. Right. So that would be the first thing, Gina, I would say to that from the spiritual side. And then now if I was to use that to back into just strategies such as investments and insurances, I'll go back again to Proverbs 29:18. When there is no vision, the people perish.
Right.
Same for financial plan. Anyone who's ever worked with us, they would probably say, man, listen, they probably could not even quote all the things we've done. That said, we know their vision.
Right.
And we know what we're driving towards. And so what ends up happening with the investments in the insurance side, Gina, and rightfully so, I understand everyone who's skeptical. Right. It's because typically those solutions are sought to be implemented absent a purpose.
Right.
And so if there's no purpose, then why is it being implemented?
Exactly.
And, sadly, for example, I think a great example of this is like estate planning.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say if you have a partner who wants to protect the spouse, because a lot of people think, I don't have no children. I work with a lot of individuals when they're retired in their 60s and they're getting older and they're looking at life expectancy. Right. They say, man, I've been doing this with my partner since we were 25, 30. I want to make sure if something happens, they're okay.
Yeah.
Because they're not sure if the current assets would do it. So one thing I've seen in estate planning is helping people calculate like what their need is.
Right.
And so here's a great starting point of like planning with purpose. And most people think having 100 or 200,000 of insurance coverage is a lot. And I would say to them, it's a lot if you're alive, meaning like if that paid out and you're alive, sure, that's a good lump sum.
Right.
That said, if you checked out yesterday,
right,
what would that mean for the life of the people that you support or with you. So for example, let's say somebody makes 200,000, 300,000 a year, 100,000 a year. Well, they only got 100,000 of coverage. That's only 1/3 of the bills.
Right.
And especially if they have a minor in that room, man. So if you got somebody that's making 200,000, 300,000, working another 10 years with inflation,
Right.
and that person's probably bringing in 3.6 to 4+ million, that if something happened to them and that capital checked out, it blows the whole plan up. So what I would say to that is people need to realize who they are to their financial plan and success.
Yeah.
And what that looks like is typically before I meet someone, they're always searching for that next great investment to like get there. And what I got to get them to realize, Gina, is that they are their best investment.
Of course.
Like, Gina, you are your best investment. That's one of the first things we established.
Yeah.
You are your best investment.
Of course.
It's cash flow that you're generating and where you're putting it is leading to the success, not the other way around.
Right.
Once we can get someone to realize that they're their best investment, now the planning can begin. Because until that perspective shift happens, it won't work. And that really gets back to the topic of today of breaking generational trauma. That is, we have as a people, black, white, green, brown, in some communities worse than others, have not learned to value ourselves. We're so undervalued by so many different people and things. We don't value ourselves. So how can you protect something that you don't find value in? Or quicker to ensure their house and their car than they are themselves, which it says, I believe that is more valuable than what I bring to the table. And that is a terrible shift. So until we can flip that, get someone to view themselves as the most valuable asset, now the planning can begin. And now it becomes, hey, if you checked out yesterday, what happens to everything we're building? If you could not work yesterday, what happens to everything we're investing in? If you build up this amazing portfolio and you have no long-term care coverage, how does it keep providing for you without it going to the government? And those questions cannot even be pondered until someone realizes that they're their best investment. So that's where it comes from, Gina. It's not necessarily the tool of life insurance or investments. It's the skepticism of the people who typically offer those tools. And since the people who offer those tools aren't probably educated in this space, nor speak from a more humanistic place, how could you ever connect the dot between problem and solution, problem and product? And that's really where the disconnect happens.
Yeah, of course. There's definitely a disconnect there with a lot of people still not realizing the value. I was a couple of years back. I went to Disney for the first time with my kids, and when we came back, one of our neighbors also mentioned we were like, "Oh my God, that's so cool!" They had also gone, but they were saying how they went for 2 weeks. We went for like 5 days or something like that. So my daughter was like, "Wow, they went for 2 weeks, Mommy. When can we go to Disney for 2 weeks too?" And at that point, that was when, I first started doing research on, life insurance, investment, generational wealth building, how the past generations leave wealth for the next. And one of the things that she said is like, "Mommy, I noticed that a lot of people," once again, it comes to your exposure, environment. I noticed a lot of parents in this area, most of them don't work as much as you do. "Mommy, when are you going to not work so much like they do?" And I said, "Honey, sit. Let me talk to you about something." So I always talk to my kids about their little bit. I'm trying to sow that seed into their psyche. And we talk about money a lot. We talk about investment, talk about budgeting. So at least at their age level, as they grow, it's something that's already ingrained in their mind to start building wealth, not just day-to-day grinding. So I said, a lot of these people that you're seeing here in this neighborhood and maybe in your school district and stuff like that, they have grandparents, great-grandparents who maybe have passed on to be with the Lord, but they left them this chunk of money that maybe every month or every year they're getting portions of it. So they don't have to stress as much as Mommy does because I'm starting from ground zero. But what I wish for you guys to have is maybe you're up step 5, right? Not from ground zero, but you're up step 5 or hopefully step 10. So you're not starting from ground zero. You have a little bit of leverage. So when you're seeing mommy doing these things, I'm talking to you about these things, you have to listen. And if you want that kind of life that you see your friends having, or traveling, or they're able to go away for that, so and so, this is why, most likely. So they're like, oh, wow. That's like, for them, it was like an aha moment. I can see on their face, like, wow, what, can we do that? So I'm like, yeah, I want to talk to you some more about that. So for the people in, especially once again, it goes back to my people, immigrant communities, highly religious immigrant communities, who might shy away from doing stuff like that. What are some of the incentives? For example, some of the stuff that sold out on was like investing your money, but you're not just putting your money in the bank, like in a saving account, right? It's doing work, it's building, what is it called? It's building equity. I love that. That's the word. So you have a purpose, how you put it, there's purpose behind what you're doing. Like for me, as I don't know if you can pick out the purpose of the reason why I'm doing some of this stuff, not just to grow, financially, but also to big time leave a legacy and a mindset change for the next generation, my children and beyond. What do you suggest? Like, how do you break it down to someone, layman terms, that your money just sitting in the bank in a savings account is just not enough?
Couple things, Gina, I'll hit on that. As far as money not sitting there being enough, goes back to that legacy conversation and that fast start you mentioned. Right. I would say one thing about working with the families we work with, everyone feels different about this conversation. I got many couples we work with that are like, you know what, we gonna spend it down to the last drop, and that my job is just to help assist them in pulling it off. Now, here's what I'll say though, and this is the thing I affirm to those couples and everyone listening: the greatest generational gift you can give to your heirs is not being a burden to them.
Oh, say that again. Say that again.
The greatest generational gift you can give to your heirs is just simply not to be a burden. And we work with a ton of immigrant households, Ghanaian, Nigerian, various backgrounds that believe that, but my children will take care of me. The moment that happens, though, that means they got to use their resources to take care of you, because you didn't use your resources to stabilize. Now, granted, like you said, a lot of it was to make a transition. However, the reason we didn't play catch up is because we did not invest. So now, since our money was not making money, we got to depend on our children as our investments. And that'll be what I'll say is we have to stop looking at our children as our retirement plan.
Oh my gosh. That's the whole title right there.
And we can come back and do that one, Gina. We can come back and do that one. I would say the moment we can get away from children being the retirement plan, yes, that is why our money should be working for us. Yes. And it's because there's forces that out there in layman's terms, like inflation. And so what does that look like? Now I'll wrap up here on this. If you think about the cost of gas now versus 15, 20 years ago, it's pretty different. And that's not going to stop. Nope. And so when you leave your money idle, what's happening is your expenses are getting more expensive than your money is gaining in equity. And when that happens, you lose. So now you feel behind, and now we need our children or heirs or somebody to support us. Right. And so that'll be, I would just say, the reason for embracing a generational conversation. Yeah. Even if you have no desire to give anything to anybody, just don't be a burden to them. And that alone will be the greatest generational gift you could ever give. That gives people a step up. That allows them to put their resources to work for them and not their parents and their own heirs. Yep. That is where generational freedom really starts. It's just by not being a burden to your own heirs.
Oh my gosh. Love that so much. Love that. What a way to hit the nail on the head as we getting close to a segment today, but I couldn't love it more than what you just said. Your children are not your retirement plan. And for most of us from Ghana, Nigeria, Tanzania, South Africa, majority of the time, this is how it becomes. Your sandwich generation.
Sandwich generation.
Yeah.
We got to break it.
Burdened. Sleepless night after sleepless night thinking about your parents. At the same time, you're worried about your children. And that pattern needs to be broken. This is why I do a lot of the stuff that I do. And to touch on all this parts. But the biggest thing that keeps a lot of people up and anxious, depressed, seeing me a lot of times for support, coaching, therapy, medication, gets down to the power of money. And people think you got to grind more, got to work more hours and build a house back home in Ghana so you retire at 65 or 70 and go back. By the time you go back, you're so broken down so much that within a year or two, you're have a heart attack, a stroke or something like that, and you're gone. But this is the time. Even people in their 20s, 30s, guys, get along with it. Reach out to crossroad partners. And literally, my life, I'm not saying it's perfect, but the alignment that I have there, like I was reaching out to a close friend of mine the other time and say, hey, listen, is it okay for me to use you as a third person or fourth person on my tracks? It's like, yeah, and then can I use you too? And this sparked this whole conversation with me and her. It's like, oh my God, don't ever feel bad. It's like, yeah. But that's where your app, everything is there, and you can just have all the info there. Everything is aligned. You give people access. The info is there, and I love that so much. And I think we need 1 or 2 or 3 more segments like this and touch all the little, all the beautiful bells and whistles that you have with your company, and just drive the awareness. Really,
let's do it. Let's do it.
Thank you so much.
Anyone want to reach out? They can reach out to our front desk. 2 ways that could work would be 850-848-5056. That'll get you in touch with our wonderful EA, Emily Ivory. Yeah. Or another way would be to email CCP scheduling at nm.com. That's 850-848-5056. Or you can reach out to us at ccpscheduling at nm.com. One of our amazing front desk members will be able to greet you, meet you, and carve out a time for us to be able to connect. And I would love to do so. And I look forward to the future segments as well, Gina. So thank you for having me on today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. I appreciate you so much. Take care, and I will talk to you.
I appreciate it. Take care. Have a blessed day now.
You too. All right. Bye. And follow him on IG, guys. Follow him on IG, okay?
I appreciate you. Talk soon now.
Bye-bye.